Africa Weekly Talk. Today's subject on the docket is about a video that I did about a month and a half ago with regards to the African Americans and Black people from the diaspora moving from Europe, America, Canada, and some part of Asia to Africa. In some of these cases, some of these people move in there to establish businesses, and some people also move in there as their retirement place after working so hard in Europe or America or wherever they have been for so many years. And out of this video that I did about a month and a half ago came a lot of responses. A lot of responses in questioning about the pros and cons of that relocation to Africa. And a lot of these questions is in relation to other videos that have popped up on the social media network like YouTube, TikTok, and other places, where you have some African Americans and Black people from diaspora also talking about their relocating to Africa. And in some cases, some people talk about how much that they brought from Europe or America and how much they've been successful in their various African countries. Now, so you have people from Africa, you have some people from Europe, you have some people from America, I mean, different people from different places. Some asking questions about what is going on in terms of how some people talking about how they've been able to become more successful in Africa and all of that. Now, I don't want anybody to get these things twisted. Let's be real about these things. Now, yes, of course, there are some people who have lived in Europe or America or Canada or Asia and have relocated to Africa and have become very successful. I personally have a couple of friends who did that some years back, and they have become very, very successful with their businesses in Africa. There's nothing wrong with that. But there also comes the fact that some of these people who relocate, having built the groundwork of connections in terms of political connections with maybe the party in office or the party in power in their various African countries, also might get a head start because of those connections that they have built. And how does these connections come about? Remember, most African countries now, with their so-called electoral democracies, a lot of these leaders and politicians in Africa today tend to have lived in Europe or America or Canada or some part of Asia. And out of that, when they're running for office, they come to Europe or America to raise funds for their political parties. Because some of these political parties also have branch offices in America, have them in Canada, have them in various European countries and all of that stuff. So these guys build alliances with these political parties. And out of these alliances that they build, when their political party gets into office, that becomes the first hairstyle that they have. So their intention is to move back to their various African countries because now their political party is in office. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because I know some people myself, who did that, and the fact of the matter is this: because of the level of corruption that exists in most African countries, and most of these people who have lived in Europe, America, Canada, and so forth and so on, they understand that making money in America, working to earn a living in America or Europe or Canada or outside of Africa is not easy. They know that. And a lot of these guys, having been in these systems for a long time, understand that very well. Some have become successful and most of them have not. So out of that, they use the political parties that they align with as a stepping stone for their own selfish needs when they move back to their various African countries. That's a fact. Because if you go down to most of your African countries today that I'm talking about, look at all your political leaders. All of them. Look at most of them. whether they are parliamentarians or congressmen or ministers or the presidents, look at them. A lot of them either lived in Europe, America, Canada, or other parts of the world. And go and look at their living situation in most of those countries they lived in. Some of them made it there. There's no two ways about it. But very, very few of them were able to be successful in wherever they lived. So majority of them, that is what they do. They wait for a political party to get into office. And then because of the level of corruption, they go in there and piggyback on that political party to use that corrupt system to enrich themselves. So let me be clear with most of my African fellows today. Look, as a matter of fact, myself, having known some people and having known a lot of people moving from Europe and other places who are into politics in Africa and all that stuff, I personally would suggest to most African countries, they are better off electing leaders from their local constituencies who haven't been anywhere than these brainwashed, indoctrinated, educated Africans who have lived in Europe, Asia, or America. Because when you're looking at the level of corruption that is going on in Africa today, the most corrupt governments that you find in Africa today, about 70 to 80% of their parliamentarians, congressmen, or the presidency are people who used to live in Europe. I mean, you ask yourself this question: how can people that have gone to live in Europe or America, who have become so enlightened to the Western culture in terms of economics, as well as building wealth and all that stuff, how can people like these become so corrupt? That's the question you have to ask yourselves. Because, you see, these people understand that it's not easy to make money in Europe. They understand you don't have to have political connections and all that stuff to make money in America and Europe and all that stuff. It takes hard work and dedication. You have to be dedicated to your craft, whatever you do in America or Europe, for you to be successful. And it's not easy. It's not easy to come by that dollar, mighty dollar. It's tough to make that mighty dollar. You're going to work your ass off to make that mighty dollar. They know that. And a lot of these people, having lived in these systems, also know that if they align themselves with these political parties of their various countries, that is an easy way out of them to become financially successful in life. And so when they join these political parties in their various European countries or America or wherever they live in, their main goal is that their political party gets into office. Immediately their political party gets into office, then they plan to move down there. So when they move down there, they already have the political connections that is needed already. So with that political connections and with the level of corruption that exists within these countries, everything is half cooked for them, if not 90% cooked. So they've already built these alliances, these corrupt alliances, to go and enrich themselves. And the local politicians, they also know that. So they use them as fronts in a lot of these businesses that you hear or you people talking about on Facebook and on YouTube and all that stuff. I left Europe with this amount of money and I'm making this in this country and all that stuff. It's all well and good. It's all well and good. But a lot of these people, like I'm saying, are fronts to a lot of these political corrupt politicians in your various African countries. These are facts. I know some of these people in most of these African countries. I had friends here who were telling me back in the day how much they were waiting for their political parties to get into office and then for them to move back. And eventually they did move back to their various African countries. Some went there, were able to succeed, others couldn't. And weren't able to succeed down there because maybe they were disappointed, because the connections didn't go deep, because it's not easy to build the connections. You have to build a connection to get in there deep as well, So that's a clear fact. So when people were asking me, how come that when people do these videos talking about how they went to this African country and this and this and all of that, look, if you want to build capital to go back to Africa and establish a business, the easy place to build capital for you to move back to any African country is either if you're in Europe, either one of these European countries, or America, Canada, or maybe Asia, Korea, or Japan, or whatever. Because at the end of the day, when you're working in these areas, places, you are able to build capital gradually, and then eventually, if you decide to move back to your various African countries, you do that and establish your business. And that is what most people who move to Africa move to Africa for. Now, then there are those who also haven't said already about their political connections. They don't have to move there with that much of a capital. Because at the end of the day, the corrupt political system that exists there will give them that capital for them to build their businesses. And so you see a lot of these politicians that today in your various African countries are rich, and they are this and they are that. Just go back when they're talking about how much wealth they have amassed right now. Like they can just go back 10 years or 15 or 20 years that they lived in whichever European country. But see, I can speak well of America because I live in America. If they lived in America, no matter how many years they lived in America, you have a tax return. Your wealth that you build in America will never deceive anybody because it's always on your tax return. So anytime somebody puts your name in that system, it's going to pop up how much wealth you had when you were living in America. From every year that you live in America, it's going to say right there how much money you built, what was your businesses, what was your capital, what was your income, and all that stuff. You can go 200 years in America. Your tax return will never lie. Unless you're doing an illegal business here and you didn't file no taxes. But if you did, and you sit in your various African countries today running your mouth about how much money you have amassed and you made this money and this and all that, there's no need to argue about that. Just show your people your tax return when you lived in America. And it will show whether if you were that wealthy when you were in America or not. And a lot of them, they know themselves. That's what they have to do. But because a lot of them didn't have anything when they were in America, they cannot even say that. So now they're talking about what they have amassed based on the corrupt system. Based on the corrupt system that they have indulged themselves in, which is their political parties that they were aligned with, that gave them that head start when they moved back home. And that is how they have built their wealth. A lot of these guys in most African countries today have built their wealth out of that corrupt political systems that they are involved in. You don't have that many of them that will say that they built their wealth based on their own hard work when they were living in Europe, America, Asia, or wherever they lived in. You know what I'm saying? So when you hear people talking about how I moved from here, I moved from Europe, and I moved from America, and all of a sudden I'm doing this and I'm doing that, man, chill, brothers and sisters. Okay, don't get it twisted. A lot of the times, there's more than what they are talking about. A lot of these people can also be fronts that the politicians use. Okay, the politicians, the corrupt politicians in most of your various African countries use some of these people as fronts. You know what I'm saying? So you see a business that is established, and you see this is the owner of the name of the business. Is the owner is this person is so and that. By the end of the day, that person is just a front of that business. The real owners of that business are the corrupt politicians that have used him because he was outside. So it's easy for them to say, oh, he made his money when he was living in America. He made his money when he was living in Europe. He made his money when he was living here. My friends, don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Most of these people, most of them, I'm not saying everybody, okay? There are some people who have genuinely built their wealth with their own hard work, either in America and then moving to their various African countries, or in Europe and then moving to their various African countries. That's a fact, because I know some people, okay, like that. But I'll also say about 90 to 95% of most of those people who have moved, and you hear about them talking about this, and that, and all that stuff. Fellows, let's be real. Just check their political background. All right? Just check their political background, and it will tell you exactly how they built that wealth. Okay? That wealth wasn't built by living in Europe or America. Because if they want to show you that they built that wealth when they were living in America, all they have to do is just post their tax returns in America and to show that every year how much wealth that you accumulated in the American system. Because American system, it doesn't lie. The system is there. You can go back 100 years and you can always go back to show your wealth whilst we're living in that system. But if you cannot show that, then fellows, don't trust them. It's just talk, because at the end of the day, you can become successful and life can be good anywhere you want to be, whether you are in America or you're in Ghana or you're in Europe or you're in Asia, it doesn't matter. Like an old good friend used to say, money speaks all languages. Money speaks all languages. It doesn't matter what language you want to speak. As far as you got the dollar or you got the money, the moolah, my friend, you good. But the reality of these videos that have been popping up and with people asking these questions about, is it true that this person said he went to Africa and they were here and they invested this and they made this and all that stuff? Some might be true. You know what I'm saying? But there are also more to what you just see or hear on these social media networks. But anyway, secondly, my advice to most Africans is this. Like I said earlier, the most corrupt African politicians that you find today, most of them lived in Europe or America. Most of them lived there. This is where they lived. This is where they worked all their life. But then they are the very ones that you are expecting them to bring some enlightenment, okay, into your systems. They are the very ones that you think that because they have been exposed to these democratic systems that they used to live in, somehow they are the ones who are going to help build the economies. But unfortunately, they are the ones who are more corrupt. They are more corrupt than the local ones who are from your various African countries. And like I said earlier, they are more corrupt because at the end of the day, they understand and don't know how difficult to make money in Europe or America. But they know it's easier when you get yourself involved in any political party in Africa. That's the easy way to amass wealth. It doesn't take a brainiac to get into politics and become wealthy. All you have to do is just join a political party, have the connections within that political party, and within few years that your political party is in office, you are wealthy. That's how it takes. But if you're talking about working hard, earning a living in America or Europe to build or amass wealth, that's a different story. And they know that. So when most of these guys relocate to their various African countries, they already have that mindset. It's already in their mindset of going there to enrich themselves through that corrupt systems that have already been established in most of their various African countries. So it's not strange. It's not strange that you will find most of these politicians in various African countries today used to live in Europe or America. Okay? Europe or America. And out of that, they have decided that the only way for them to become successful in their various African countries is to join politics. And that's what they moved down there for. Okay? Anyway, fellas, it was nice talking to you guys. But like I said, I'm going to come back next week and I'm going to talk about why certain things need to change in Africa for Africa to move forward into the 21st century. But if it's Sunday, it's the Africa Weekly Talk. God bless you guys. You have a great week and peace and love.